really thought at first that Throne and Liberty was going to be an MMO that respects players' time. Now I think that most players feel like it's becoming a second job.
Bro, like after, bro, that's a second job. Buddy, oh God, newsflash. You're playing a Korean grind MMO. You're playing a Korean grind MMO. You signed up for the job when you downloaded the game. You like the grind. You love it. You live for it. You just don't want to tell anybody. You just don't let them know. You love the grind. Stop complaining about it. All right, so how can Throne and Liberty fix this problem? This was sent to me. I don't know when this video was made. What is this? 3 days ago. 3 days ago. Did you wash your hands? I always wash my hands. What do you think? I'm a Neanderthal? What's happening right now?
People have been voicing their concern about the release of the runes on Throne and Liberty, and people are not happy about how
Yeah, this is how can Throne and Liberty fix this problem? Everybody's pointing the finger at the rune system, and we'll see. All right, let's just see what he has to say.
It is to farm. In my opinion, I think...
Guys, I need your Siege POVs if you want me to do reviews. I've got like 2 right now.
that it is fair that the people who farm dimensional trials should have more of the advantage than the average player who doesn't. But this shouldn't be a large gap. What I mean by this is, according to our Korean server veterans, the time it takes to get to level 60 is extremely long, even if you farm the dungeons every single day. Kanon, a famous Korean throne and liberty...
Kanon. Do you guys all know who Kanon is? I love Kanon XO. Kanon is one of my favorite Throne and Liberty streamers.
Said on one of...
I love the AI voice, bro.
...streams that even he would not do another rune farming because he already had enough on the Korean server, which just shows how terrible the grind must have been.
I don't think that the grind... Look. The grind is bad. Is it hard to get runes? Of course it is. Is it too hard? Maybe. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, if the gameplay and like the current loop of the game was actually good, no one would be even bitching about this. Okay? Throne and Liberty has a core fundamental problem, and I don't think that it's runes. I think the problem with Throne and Liberty is it doesn't feel like there's a purpose to play the game unless you're in a hardcore PvP server, or I mean like in a hardcore PvP guild going at like full throttle, right? You're either going full throttle or you're not playing at all, and that's the problem. I do not think that the game is approachable enough as a casual player. I don't think it's it's approachable enough for like kind of the middle ground player who wants to like maybe get involved in PvP but can't play all the time. Say they're like in their 30s or their 40s or they're a dad or some shit. They don't have a whole lot of time, but they'll spend money on the game and they want to be there for the sieges and the riftstones and the boonstones. They can do that, but like no, they can't keep up with the game because they can't go grind out the runes and stuff. Again, I think that the biggest problem with this game and the hot take of the week from me, okay, because I've given this a lot of thoughts after the tournament. I'm like, why are people quitting Throne? Why are people leaving the game, right? Why are people, like, what would maintain people playing the game long term? Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, and it's going to be a controversial take, people are going to get upset with me, you have to remove alliances from the game entirely. Okay, the reason I think that you have to remove alliances from the game entirely, and from every aspect of the game, they need to just be basically completely obliterated. And the reason is the smaller guilds do not feel like there is a purpose to going to things like conflict bosses right now. There's no reason to, because you're going to be fighting over 100 people. Your small guild who hasn't done like you're not in an alliance with other big guilds. You're in an alliance with other chill guilds, right? So all 4 of you are bringing, you know, a small amount of players, and there's like literally no way to compete with one another because all the big guilds are all on the same team and they're all just shitting on everybody else. Okay. However, if everyone was split up and all of the individual guilds had to bring their own people, then you open up the door for guilds that only bring 10 people. The guilds that only bring 15 people to a world boss can actually eat a little bit because, you know, the 70v70 is going on, or the 50v50 of the other guilds, or even the 40v40 of the other guilds is going on, and they can eat a little bit. They're not getting focused down immediately by this massive, overwhelming Zerg. They feel like it's such an uphill battle in PvP, and it's going on at the open world dungeons as well. You've got too much of the alliances kind of getting involved with one another. So you have them. Is it cool to be able to lock down an open world dungeon? Of course it is. But wouldn't it be cooler if you could just lock it down with just your guild? It feels, if you're like a new player or a casual player and you're running in with your friends, if you run in with a party of 6 people and there's only one guild of 40 people, 30, 40 people defending an open world dungeon, you can kind of get around that. You can go in through different ways. You can fight them. You can skirmish that. It's something where if you fight and you keep grinding, you can overcome some of these forces. Right? If another guild shows up, not everyone's on the same team. So you have the ability to make something happen. There's a competition for resources. That's how you build good PvP in a game, is a competition for resources. What Thorn and Liberty has is there a competition for resources? Yes. But the difference between the top end guild alliance and the next guild alliance on most servers is so cataclysmically big that it discourages everyone from showing up and doing any PvP whatsoever, because they feel that they're going to be zerged, or they feel like, we could put in 200 hours and get absolutely nowhere against this. They just have so many more people than us. If you eliminate alliances from the game, you effectively bring down the overall amount of people at a world boss that are all on the same team, which effectively encourages more people to come to the world boss because they have a higher chance of actually obtaining meaningful rewards or meaningful resources from that boss. The same thing goes for the open world, like the island. You're not going to have people as locked down on the island necessarily, although the island needs to be redesigned so that it's not all around although they did redesign it a little bit. It's a little bit better now. But you'd have more open world PvP as well, because again, guilds would be like, okay, if we're a small guild, but if we bring 10 or 12 people to the open world dungeon, we can outcompete some of these other guilds because it's not their peak hours right now, or they don't have people. But they will never, Taylor Swift ever, beat a 4 guild alliance of the 4 strongest guilds on the server, right? Or close to the 4 strongest guilds on the server. They're just never going to be able to compete with that, right? And so they're not even going to try. That's what people do, is they let go, right? If they feel like they can't compete at all, they just let go. And that's just the truth. Okay, so you need to bring it down to a point where people feel like they have purpose in the game. So if a new player, or a casual player rather, maybe not a new player, but a casual player wants to come in and be like, okay, well, I'm with my casual guild and I've got my homies. They should feel encouraged to go to a world boss. Hey, dude, if we show up to this world boss and we backdoor it just right, or maybe we play together just right, we can get contribution on the boss, and we actually might get some loot from this boss. That's not currently the situation. If 6 guys are in a voice call together and they're in a passive guild and a world boss spawns, they're like, yeah, no, if it's not a peace boss, we're not even with it, because it's not even worth doing. It's not even worth going to. So you have got to break alliances. Alliances are just destroying the fabric, I think, of the game overall, because everyone feels that they either have to be super hardcore, foot on the gas pedal to get in the super hardcore alliance, like the rank 1 alliance on the server, that you've got to be in that alliance, or you're just not able to do anything in the game. You're falling so far behind them because they get all the arc boss loot, they get all the boss loot, they get to do the open world dungeons at nighttime, and they get to have all the fun. And you don't get to have any fun at all, because again, if you're not in the main alliance, you're not winning. And the main alliance is going to be super hard. Again, this encourages the primary alliance. Even these guys, are they having fun? Absolutely. But they want to take their foot off the gas pedal. Look, I know what's going on in the minds of these hardcore guilds. They're in it. These people are logging in for every world boss. They're there for rift stones, boon stones, siege. They're there for open world PvP. They're doing war games, they're in the tournaments, they're doing all this crazy shit. They would like nothing more than to take a breath, man. If they don't feel like they necessarily have to be at every single world boss or every single siege, right? It would make them breathe a sigh of relief. Furthermore, here's the thing. You break alliances, all right? Break alliances, throw them out the window, they're gone. Then take the number of conflict bosses in the game and half them, okay? And I've said this before, okay? So instead of 4 conflict bosses in a day, right? Or even 3 conflict bosses in a day, you would have 2. But these 2 give twice as many loots. They give twice as much loot. And again, this is a competition for resources. Okay, right now you have 4 world bosses, conflict bosses. And let's be honest, these are not conflict bosses. On most servers, you all know what happens. It's just one alliance. That's the supple bosses, right? Or that's the press W bosses, right? Those are just bosses for the Zerging alliance, right? Like there's no conflict actually going on at these bosses, okay? That being said, you break alliances down, and then you half the number of conflict bosses, but you double the loot from those conflict bosses. What you're doing is you're saying, hey, new players, hey, casual players, you're not going to be zerged as hard, right? Because there can only be a maximum of 70 players on each team against you. Everyone's going to be fighting each other. There's twice as much loot now, so there's twice as much as incentive for you to go. You're not going to be zerged as much. You have a very high chance of getting loot. There's a competition for resources. You will end up getting more fighting at these two bosses than you would have at the 4 that you had before. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. Okay. That's the reassembled bosses. Yeah, very funny. Very funny. But like, you need to half the amount of conflict bosses so that, number one, there's more fighting at 2 bosses than no fighting at 4 bosses. Number 2, get rid of alliances. Okay, it is what it is. Like, you just have to dump them. Okay, and number 3, you need to make the daily grind actually interesting. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. Contracts are a joke. And you can spice these up. Here, I'm going to do it for you right now. You ready? This is just off the top of my head. Okay. Contracts, terrible. You get 6 at a time or whatever, or 5 at a time, and then you run out. You have to do them. They're miserable. Okay, nobody likes those. They're a grind. Okay. However, what if while you were doing your contracts, there was a chance for a conflict, little like an elite boss to spawn while you're doing your like maybe a mini world boss to spawn while you're doing your contracts, and if it did spawn, and you had the most contribution to it before it died, you had a chance to get like really, really good loot. This is not hard. Okay. All right. This spices contracts up. All right. Then, and it also incentivizes, there's open world PvP. That doesn't mean you're going to be zerged at it. Okay. Because guilds can't organize for that. Right. It's spontaneous. It just happens, which means PvEers, they might just get a free boss every once in a while. No one's around. Oh shit, baby. I might get this elite boss. I'm going to get a free like pair of pants here. I'm gonna get a free weapon here, whatever it is, right? Like that they're going for. I'm gonna get some tier 3 runes here for free, right? But then somebody can come compete with them, whatever. Like you encourage competition. It's not necessarily encouraging a zerg, and you also have more open world PvP, which is fun, but it's not required either, right? It's just a fun thing that you can add to contracts to make contracts interesting, right? Like it's like this is what you have to do to make the game interesting long term for players, for your casual players. And that's the problem, is that a lot of those players are quitting, and it makes it a lot less fun for the players that are actually playing the game. Okay, so all of these players right here would be happier if there was another 200 players here that were from other guilds around too. Okay, like it's just like open world PvP is just better in this regard. Conflict bosses are so stale and boring on a lot of servers that like guilds shouldn't have to re-roll servers to have fun conflict bosses when they can there's plenty of people that can compete on their servers. The reason that they say that their server is dead is because they've stacked all 4 of the strongest guilds in the same alliance, right? And the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8 on the server is so big, no one is even going to bother trying competing with these people. Okay, and it also leads to attempted mega alliances too. It's miserable. All right, it's absolutely miserable. You cannot keep alliances in the game and make this game go long term. Alliances have to be split. You half the number of world bosses in the day, and you double the loot at those bosses to encourage new players and even singular parties. And from casual players, like, oh, a conflict boss spawn. All right, we're going to let everybody else. It should be like they should start smiling. They should be like, okay, we're going to be rats at this boss. You know what I mean? We're going to go in. We're going to try to get a bunch of contribution on the boss. And like all the other guilds are going to be fighting each other. And since it drops way more loot, we actually have a really good chance, since we're the only ones here from our guild, to actually get loot from this boss. Right? Like that would be super fun, and it encourages more people to go to conflict bosses. So in a crazy way, you have to, a lot of people are going to look at it like, oh, you're halving the amount of PvP if you half the number of bosses. No, you're actually doubling the amount of PvP, because you're actually, or honestly, infinitely increasing, because there's no PvP happening at conflict bosses on servers like that aren't like Zeroth right now, right? Like there are a few servers, there are a few servers where there's like 2 or 3 competitive alliances, sure. But that's not the status quo. The status quo is that the majority of the servers are dominated by one alliance. They basically, everything the light touches is their kingdom, and that's just how it goes. Okay, there's ways around this. break the alliances, cut the bosses in half, double the loot at the bosses, and then make contracts interesting as well. Make the daily grind interesting and rewarding. Okay, as you're doing your contracts, the elite bosses spawn. Again, those are conflict. If you hit the boss, you can suddenly be PvP'd, whatever. Or there's like a PvP zone that spawns for the boss. And like, again, that makes that makes it super interesting. And maybe they drop purple runes, whatever. Would be super, super fun for people. And again, like that would be engaging for even casual players, because then they know they can call, like if a casual player is doing their contracts and one of those bosses spawns, they can tell their guild, be like, hey guys, dude, there's a boss up, come over here and party with me. You know what I mean? Like, then they're not going to get zerged because it's not an organized PvP event. Like, the other PvP guilds don't necessarily know that it's going on, right? It's cool. And it keeps people running around the world and exploring and seeing what's going on in the world. It helps people engage with the game a lot more. It's just fun. Right. So again, I think the biggest problem with Throne and Liberty isn't people focus on this rune system. And I'm sure that's what he's probably about to do. I don't know. But like, he's been talking about runes for like 45 seconds now. And like, guys, it's not just the rune system that's the problem. Is it a grind? Sure. But people wouldn't mind the grind if the grind was enjoyable. Okay, the grind in Black Desert Online is enjoyable. That's why people like it. Okay, people can bitch about it, but at the end of the day, the reason the grind was enjoyable for a long time in the game is because, like, when a white dot walked onto your rotation, you're like, hey, hey, you're like a crab from Finding Nemo. It's crazy. Everything was Arsha. You were going ballistic. It was fun, right? Like, you have competition for resources going on while you're grinding, and it's a super enjoyable experience that is also very rewarding, right? In this case, yeah, I think the rune grind is definitely dull and it's really hard, but it's also not enjoyable, and that's a much bigger issue. And again, the biggest issue is, again, these alliances. I do think that alliances need to just be completely broken down, which I understand means you need to rebalance siege. This is not hard, okay? You don't need to keep the siege system the same. It's fine. Just tone down or up the numbers. It's really not that difficult. We like the mechanics with siege, the golems and stuff. Just tone down how much damage the golems are doing, tone down their HP, whatever. Make it defendable for 4 guilds. Do what you gotta do. What is up, guys? Brief intermission here to say that my first official merch has been released, and it's a Basil plushie. Oh, it's Basil. He's in a tuxedo. It's so cute. If you find my videos entertaining, fun, or informative at all, if you're watching a guide, is to support it with the Basil plushie. Links in the video description. It's only available for the next few days, so check it out, guys. Thanks so much. Back to the video.
But since I know that Throne and Liberty developers usually listen to the community,
They do.
instead of yapping about how hard and grindy it is to farm, I would instead yap about how hard and grindy it is while giving some suggestions to hopefully ease the grind for us players. One of my suggestions is to add runes as a reward on our daily dungeon runs. In the current patch, we are able to do 5 dungeon runs every day, and giving out at least 5 runes on every run would definitely give our casual players a faster way to catch up to the grinders that treat Throne and Liberty as their work and farm runes all day.
Sure, but the problem is not that, again, the acquiring runes. Let's say that all of you had all of your runes, right? Are you happy? No, because there's not enough endgame to do anything with them. Like, there's not enough people to fight. Unless you're in the primary alliance, you're in the big alliance, sure, maybe, but
This way, it would also give incentives to those who have already completed their build to still do dungeon runs, since I've seen a lot of players who just let their dungeon tokens be full because they don't have the need to grind more, or they think that it's just a waste of time, especially for people who could easily swipe and get Lucent. If they think that 5 runes is too much, then they could adjust it to where 2-star dungeons would get 3 runes and 1-star dungeons would only get 2. What they don't realize is that a large majority of the players right now are not able to grind runes on a daily basis. I mean, most players can't even burn all of their 1-star and 2-star dungeon tokens, not to mention the abyssal contract tokens.
So now that I've done a decent amount of hardcore WoW, and I've done dungeons in that game, I've done dungeons in BDO, which have like more of like the open world, but it's kind of instanced kind of deals. And then I've done a lot of dungeons in Throne and Liberty. I kind of understand what the problem with the Throne and Liberty dungeons are, is that you have to grind them. You must grind them, no matter what, every single day. You have got to grind them. And I think it takes a lot of the fun out of the dungeons, having to repeat them like 150 times like that. I don't know. It just feels much more tedious. In hardcore WoW, I do the dungeons. I move on. There's another dungeon for me to go to in a few levels. And at level 60, yeah, you're running like the same dungeons, but there's a purpose because you're getting to the end game raid, right? There's like a raid that you're trying to grind for so you can get loot. So like, I don't know. Like it feels a lot different. And I'm also running it way less in WoW. Even at the end game, you have like Tyler 1 who runs like a dungeon like maybe 3 times a day. Nah, bro. In Throne and Liberty, you could run a dungeon like 20 times in a day. You could run it like 50 times in a week. And it's the same one every single time.
I mean, just look at how many Sanctum of Desire contracts you're hiding in your inventory right now.
Y'all are crazy. Even when I was playing the game at like a full-time, like gigged, like ultra pace, like doing everything I could. I had negative balances on everything and constantly playing and logging in. I was just perma-logged in. I could not. These contracts are, these people are crazy. There's just not a chance. Like, they were like, no, you just go around and hit the mobs that other people are doing, and then you get the contribution. I'm like, dude, how much time do you think there is in the day? Bro, I gotta be at 4 world bosses. I gotta be at the Lantern Festival's about to start. I gotta be there. Then we got Rift and Boonstone later with the alliances falling apart. I have to manage that. Like, I got all kinds of shit I gotta do. There ain't no way I got the time, man.
If they're thinking of the longevity of Throne, they should be thinking about ways on how they could...
This event, man. Look, I'm just gonna say it. This event was the most fun event that I have ever seen ruined by a company in my life. Okay, it was super fun. It was like it was actually reasonably balanced, right? It was on theme for the event, and the problem was you had to get 7 wins. Okay, so everyone is sweating out of their minds. Guys, you guys remember I had to play 24 games to get 7 wins. Okay, it was a miserable grind. Okay, this event would have been better if they had just said win 7 times or play 12 games. Done. Right? Or play 14 games, whatever. Then it would have been fine. I mean, the event would have been totally fine. But both weeks that I did the event, I actually just didn't even do it the 3rd week. I was like, I can't do it. My mental just can't handle it. It's because the first week that I did it, it took like 19 games to get 7 wins. And by the way, I'm like hard carrying every game, doing my best. L every time. It's because I have people that have more chromosomes than the opponent. It's like ridiculous, right? And then, and I shouldn't be worried about that in an event game mode. You can't make a for fun game mode about winning. Okay, like, should the winning be rewarding? Sure, right? But it's about participating in the event. You want to participate engagement in the event without forcing people to be sweaty. I think that it overly encouraged. There was more toxicity in the event because they forced it to be around wins. The event, super well designed. All they need to change is make it, instead of just 7 wins, it just needs to be like X amount of games or until you win 7 times. That's fine.
Could make more casual people stay. Because these are the players that keep the game alive, and they're the ones keeping this game relevant.
Correct.
Not the top alliances, because they only add up to like 240 players max. And
no, that's some L logic right there. I think that the top alliance on a server, or even the top guild on the server, people used to point at show. So let's say that they break alliances and it's just like supple TC, and they were just individual guilds, right? People are grinding to get into those guilds. So like, if a guild or an alliance is around, it represents more than just the players in that alliance. Because there's a lot of players that want to be sweaty and they want to get into those guilds. And there's something to be said for that. So like, you can't just be like, oh, well, the top 1% of players only represents, like 1% of the player base, right? Kind of true, but like there's a lot of the rest of the player base that is grinding to try to get into that 1%, and that competition is what feeds the player base overall.
if you're scummy and you
But
have
I see what he's saying, though.
a mega alliance, then right around 480 players. While it is also true that we would eventually reach the max level of runes if we keep on attending world events, but when is that really?
Homie, why we got screen shake on right now? What are we doing?
1 month? Surely not. I would guess around 6 months if I'm being generous. And that's if you religiously attended every world event, especially since tier 2 gears are coming, and with it comes level 80 runes. Who wants to get pummeled every day for 6 months by a dude who has max level runes every PvP just because you don't have the time to actually grind runes? Because
I would, if it was fun. I'm just gonna say it. Like, again, I don't mind getting pummeled if I feel like I have a chance of winning, right? It's when I don't feel like I have a chance of winning that PvP becomes unfun, right? When it's a 0 out of 10 win condition. And that's what a lot of our world bosses have turned into. A lot of the conflict bosses are like, you have a 0 out of 10 chance that you will out-Zerg Ethereum at the world boss, right? Like it's just not going to happen, right? That's what kills PvP overall. That's what kills the experience for casual players too. So what you need to do as developers is you need to look objectively at every single type of PvP that you have. And you say, okay, how do we make this like a 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 chance that this player could actually win? Even if it's 1 out of 10, it's better than nothing.
Because most of us have a life. We have schools that we should
Ethereum, who is that? Don't even worry about it unless you're an 800-pound girl.
attend to. We have work that we need to feed our family, and we have other things in life that need to be done more than the game. And guess what people feel when they get their ass beat every day? A, quit the game. B, quit the game and break their mental.
Nah, dude, this is a joke.
C,
He's memeing. He's 100% memeing, but here's the deal. I think that the response of getting your ass beat in open world PvP by a lot of players, and the players that Throne of Liberty is aiming at, is to get good. I do. Throne of Liberty, most players that play TNL are already looking for kind of, like, maybe they haven't tried PvP before, but like it's a great game to like start getting into PvP with it, right? And then when you get your ass beat in open world, you're like, oh damn, dude, I want to do that, right? I want to be the guy that beats everybody else's ass, right? Like, so those are the players that I think Throne targets really aggressively. I think getting your ass beat every day, I don't know, there's not very many people. There are some people that are like, I quit Throne because all I do is they kill me repeatedly. No. Most of the time, if they're quitting Throne, it's because they feel like they can't be competitive unless they're in like the best of Alliance, right? Like they don't mind getting their ass beat, right? As long as there would be like a chance of winning at some point would be great. You know what I'm saying? I want to beat your ass. If you didn't have a penis, I would also want you to beat my ass. That being said, again, I think that a lot of PvPers and a lot of people that play Throne are fine with getting their ass beat. But like, it's because it sparks competition, right? That being said, it is discouraging, right? It can be discouraging, right?
Quit the game, break their mental, and destroy their keyboards. Or D, enjoy it because they're a masochistic. Doesn't
Oh yeah, there it is.
matter. Every option is bad. And who's the genius that put this rune box in the weekly mission and thinks that players should do 7-dimensional trial runs before they could get 150 boxes of runes? I mean, why not just put 7 normal dungeon runs on it, or just bring back whatever mission was in there and just replace the rewards with the rune boxes, because everyone would definitely be grateful. Hell, I'd give you and the entire Throne and Liberty team my feet pick for you to bring those
What is going on with the... All right, just...
missions back. If by any chance they can't do any of this, maybe making Tier 5 trials a bit more forgiving would be the go-to solution. Currently, not all people have the chance to learn the mech because players don't like to waste time teaching other players how to actually play the mechanics. Because for some reason, it is so hard to explain to players that each player shouldn't get close to each other because the boss is about to breathe on my rear.
I think people that bitch about it, like, oh my God, I can't get players that know what they're doing. Then just do a easier trial then, or make friends, bro. That's part of the community coming together, right? Is it forces you, if you are really this frustrated that you keep getting morons in your dimensional trial runs or your dungeon runs or whatever, then you have to make friends. That's the whole point. It's almost like the developers planned it that way. Go make some friends. And also, I personally like the toxicity. If I get hard flamed in a dungeon because I don't know what the I'm doing, it makes my day.
Can I blow air into your butt?
And I get it. Even if they did watch a YouTube video, they would still need to experience the real thing because we're humans. We make errors, and we learn more through experiencing things.
It's true.
You're not going to expect someone to cook a perfect steak the first time they do it, not even on the second time or the third time.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
So that is why my suggestion is that Tier 1 to Tier 5
I don't know why this is not a perfect steak. This is disgusting. Like, you can see the marks where the jockey was hitting the meat. All right. Y'all have got to cook. You guys got to cook your meat. Like, this is disgusting. That's nasty as fuck.
trials should have the same mechanics as the 2-star dungeons. No new bullshit. And the higher tiers should have a higher chance of getting chaos runes or something, because it doesn't make sense that tier 5 has the same chance of getting a rune as tier 15 and higher. Also send us straight to the boss room.
I want you all to be fully aware. I haven't done any rune grinding at all, and my build is super out of date. So what I'm going to have chat do is I'm just going to spend money. Chat's going to tell me what I should build. I'm just going to buy what chat tells me, and we're going to do that. And then we're going to experience dimensional trials and stuff with no guides. I am your worst nightmare. I'm going in no guides. I'm just going to go in and do it. And I'm just going to try to figure out the mechanics on everything. Tier 5 dungeons. I haven't done any of that shit. It's going to be an adventure. I'm here. I am your nightmare fuel. I am the reason that you hate dungeons.
Room. Why do we need to kill all of the mobs in the area before we go inside the boss room? To damage check us and make us quit if we can't kill the mobs in the 5-minute marker? Just scratch off 5 minutes from my time and let me go inside the boss room and start the shit show early so that we won't waste another 5 minutes if we think that we can't beat the boss in time, or one of our members doesn't know the mechanics.
Homie just wants to run guild boss blitz, man. He's like, F the dungeon.
Like I said, I don't blame them because there are a lot of casual players that just want to enjoy the game, and most of the mentally challenged players on your dungeon trial run are just the players who want to try the new dungeon trials to see if they can do it. And guess what? They can't. And if they can't, they end up being
This guy's gonna hate me.
kicked because of how extremely punishing it is, to where if you just lose one player on a tier 5 trial dungeon or above, everything would be
Really?
And if you don't have runes,
Oh, you guys are so
it means
cooked.
that if you're a PvP enjoyer, you are just a punching bag for players who maxed it. Don't tell me that I should just learn to play better. Yes, playing better than the enemies matters in large-scale combat, but in small scale, playing better is not going to do shit because this game is not built for that.
Wait, what?
Most of the ability in this game is point and click. That, or a dagger swipes your ass, putting
That is a cooked perspective. That is a completely cooked perspective. Guys, part of the reason large scale PvP is so fun is because small scale PvP is fun. It's the truth. Okay? The things that you do in a large scale manner, how you interact with your statics and stuff, are the reason that Supple was the winner of the Best in Guild tournament for North America. Okay? It's the reason that TC was second, right? And beat all the other guilds. It's the reason Tier was so competitive. It's the reason Press W is so competitive. It's how your statics are working together. Your statics working together on a small scale, in a small scale perspective, represent a lot, right? Towards like your skill in large scale PvP, which is where the game matters, which is where the PvP actually matters. So like, I respectfully disagree on this take right there. I do think that small scale PvP is not just, oh guys, button click, right? No. I do think that the individual skill to play matters, player matters, your positioning matters, who you're targeting matters, who you're locked onto, right? How you're positioned around your static, who you're choosing to engage. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Also, your build, super important. What consumables you're running, when you're using cooldowns, all of that matters.
you in the ground and charging a heavenly blow straight to your face. By the time you wake up, you're at spawn. And guess what happens when players get beat every day? Yes, they get burned out. Next is you lose players in your server, and that server ends up dying, having one alliance rule all without a competition. And
yeah, but he's attributing this to runes, right? Like servers dying and like only like one alliance being powerful. Runes, really? Like that's what we think is doing it? No. Again, this goes back to what I was saying before. No, it's the alliance system, right? Runes are a grind, but like here's the thing: grinds keep people playing the game. Like it really wouldn't be all that big of a deal if the game was super enjoyable for everyone. The problem with runes is that the rune grind isn't super enjoyable, but neither is the end game at the end of the day because there's no one to fight because everyone's stacked on the same damn team. You already know who's going to win every single time. You need to break alliances.
now no one is having fun. You see that slippery slope argument I just
Yeah, like I don't give a that the runes are hard to grind. I really don't give a shit. I don't care. I think it's fine.
did there? Yes, that's how angry I am about all this rune grind. Good thing that my guild leaders told us that it is not required to farm runes, because I would definitely be back playing with my wife, called Kafka, in Hong Kong.
Of course, this is a weeb, dude. These goddamn people. Oh my god. It's always some yaya. Runes, man. Runes stopped me from playing the game. The grind didn't feel rewarding enough. Well, I think that that's less on the rune grind and more on you probably all you had to do was runes and you probably didn't get any meaningful PvP or anything in the meantime. Guys, if the game is really good and the PvP is really good, newsflash, you don't care about the grind dislike doesn't exist. Okay, I know this because in BDO, people hated the grind. People hated PvE. Okay, go ask any of the BDO PvPers. They hate PvE. They don't care. But it's like the PvE doesn't, it's not even happening for them because the PvP was so good for so long, they didn't give a shit because there was constantly guilds beefing with each other. There was constantly stuff to do and run around and do stuff with your friends and get together and go gank some streamer, loser, cuck who's out in the open world, whatever, right? There was always something to be doing and that kept people engaged, right? Sure, grinding for the Black Star, grinding for your pens. I'm gonna tell you right now, this rune grind you're all bitching about, this is nothing. From what I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, you could go from nothing to full endgame runes in a month, right? Like 30 days, like theoretically, like full endgame runes are good to go as long as you grinded like hard. Less than that, easily. Okay, so let me tell you something. Come in here right now. Come in here. Okay. I had to literally grind for over a year to get a Pandandalion. 63 failed attempts every day. Every day I would march back to Fogan's with a Pride Dandy with 1 durability because it would downgrade. My gear would go in reverse. Oh my God. For runes, you don't even go in reverse. You're not losing durability. You're not losing stats on your gear. No. You know the reason we all did that? It's because the PvP was so good. We didn't give a how hard the grind was. The game was incredible. That's what Throne and Liberty needs to do. Don't care about this grind. Is whatever. This isn't necessarily the reason people quit the game. This is the reason morons say that they quit the game. Okay? Because if the PvP was good enough, you would keep playing in spite of the fact that the rune grind was brutal. Should the rune grind be toned back? Maybe it should. Maybe it shouldn't. Either way, at the end of the day, the problem is there's not enough fun and engaging content for casual players. There's not enough fun and engaging content for PvPers, and there's not enough reason for someone to keep playing the game once they've fallen out of the top alliance on a server. That's the biggest problem. That's why you're seeing a large drop off. Like, you need to encourage more fun in your video game. Again, I've already highlighted enough of how to do this, so I'm just gonna move on.
Kai Star Rail if they didn't say that. Definitely not because my guild leader is subbed to my YouTube channel. Another thing is, I think that they should keep on giving rune rewards when playing events, such as the current Christmas event. Or if the abomination himself, the Tingle Tinger, came back, I hope that it gives 100 runes per run because I just finished my therapy caused by him saying ting every run that I did. I grinded that event too because it wasn't as hard as grinding tier 5 trial dungeons because everyone knows what they're doing. And I did not attend his art show.
Nah, you did it because it's fun.
That because I had to go to my therapist after listening to him for a month. Anyway, I'm just putting it out there so the developers don't forget that these runes in the events are extremely helpful to us. And the final thing that I think they're not realizing is that playing this game is supposed to be fun, and no one in their right mind is currently thinking that it is fun to grind runes every day for 3 hours just to...
But it could be. That 3-hour grind could be way more engaging. You think less about the time it's taking you to get the runes and more about the journey it takes to get there. That's what they have to focus on here. And again, there's plenty of ways to increase people's fun as they grind for runes, as they grind for endgame gear. Guys, we're complaining because you can't get to the max endgame in a month. What do you want? What do you want runes to be obtainable in 1 week? Right? And a month is apparently being generous. Apparently you can do it in 2 weeks, but assuming you play every day.
To kill a boss.
What are we talking about?
I had this group of members in my guild that took 18 hours to beat tier 17 of Shakarux when the runes were recently released.
18 hours? Huh?
Sure that if I asked them, was it fun? Their answer would be anything but yes. I really thought at first that Throne and Liberty was going to be an MMO that respects players' time. Now I think that most players feel like it's becoming a second job.
Bro, like after... Bro, that's a second job. Buddy, Oh God, newsflash. You're playing a Korean grind MMO. You're playing a Korean grind MMO. You signed up for the job when you downloaded the game. You like the grind. You love it. You live for it. You just don't want to tell anybody. You just don't let them know. You love the grind. Stop complaining about it. Guys, you all knew what you were getting when you downloaded the Korean MMO.
I just hope that they could find a way to ease the grind for the
Morphy and Bach, thanks for the prime sub, I appreciate you.
players, because at the current state that we're in right now, I don't think that most of the players are lasting more than 3 months after Tier 2 releases.
Oh. No, I think that the reason that players won't last more than 3 months after Tier 2 releases isn't that like we're basically caught up with Korea? Right? We get Tier 2 and maybe like 1 or 2 more updates, but we're caught up with Korea. And then here's the problem. Y'all bitched that the grind was too hard, and then you finished the grind the moment that it released, and then we're all caught up with Korea, and then there's nothing to do in the game. Okay? The problem has nothing to do with the grind. The problem is entirely that there's nothing to do with the end game, even when the grind is over. While the grind is going on, there's nothing to do, right? And the reason there's nothing to do is because you have killed PvP in your own game by basically having alliances all the time. If 4 guilds are constantly working together, you cannot expect, it's not the community's fault, okay? Because there's some morons out there that will just blame the community. Oh, well, the top 4 guilds, they just ally each other. Yeah, man, they want to win. Don't blame the community for adapting to a system that the developers put into the game. That's not their fault, okay? Alliances need to be completely dissolved. All right, so that at maximum you could have 70 players at a conflict boss. At maximum you could have 70 players at Bellendir, all working together to try to get into that Bellendussy, if you will. Again, the game has to be fun outside the grind. Outside, set your gear aside, set where you are in the game aside for a moment. Are you having fun with the game? Right? Like what are you doing? Right? What are people having fun with in Throne? Guild versus guild competition, right? Competition for resources, trying to get loot, etc. Okay, like trying to get really end game like loot and stuff. It doesn't exist right now. You have entire alliances that are like switching to servers so that they don't have any competition. They can blow everyone away, and just like no one else on that server will get loot except for their 4 guilds. And you can't even blame them for doing that because 4 guilds are allowed to ally with each other. Completely dissolve alliances. That shit. Every guild is their own entity, all right? And you just go from there. Also, contracts make them much more entertaining. Again, I'll say, TLDR, you can have like some little elite boss spawn during contracts that will drop, that have the potential to drop like tier 3 runes, or they have the potential to drop purple armor and weapons, or even tier 2 when it comes out. But like they spawn intermittently, and they initiate conflict in the middle of the world. So they're conflict driven. All right, so the boss spawns, and a PvEer is like, oh, dude, no one's around. I can get this boss for free. They run over, they start doing it, and then other people come in to compete with them at that boss to try to get loot and contribution on that boss. This means that PvP guilds can't just organize Zergs at scheduled times, okay? It's just what's happening in the moment. It gives a casual player an attempt at open world PvP and introduces them to open world PvP in a fun way that is a competition for resources and allows them to potentially win. Okay, all right, players need to think that they can win, or that they have a chance of winning. Right now, no one thinks that they have a chance of winning unless you're, of course, in the giant Zerg alliance on one server or another. If you're in the strongest alliance on the server, okay, congratulations, you're winning. You have no one to fight. Everyone just rolls to a different server so that they can be the top alliance on that server. This completely discourages casual players from playing your game, and everyone in between casual and hardcore. Everyone on this spectrum. The only players that are still playing are the hardcore players, and even those players quit after a while because it's just too hardcore. They just can't keep up with the game. You split alliances like this, and again, instead of having a bunch of conflict bosses in a day, you cut the number of conflict bosses in half, okay, and you double the loot at those conflict bosses, okay? Splitting up alliances and doubling loot at the conflict bosses will encourage casual players in PvE guilds to come to the conflict bosses because they actually have a chance of acquiring loot from that boss, because there's 2 times as much loot that drops and everyone is actually fighting each other. Okay, there's at most they're going to see a group of 40, 50 people, maybe 60 people, if a guild is super active. But like then you have everyone else fighting them as well. It's not like everyone's on the same team and just standing around the boss, which is currently what we have. You encourage much more PvP at 2 bosses than you would ever get at 4. It is what it is. Okay, I understand that some of those are hot takes. People are going to be upset with me, but like, here's the video here. Again, I think it's a good video that he put together. I think that it's good that he's giving feedback. I fundamentally disagree with why Throne and Liberty is starting to head downhill as a game. I think that it's absolutely savable. They need to just make some quick adjustments to the game. They have a great game, right? That encourages a lot of guild drama and a lot of guild PvP. They just need to do exactly that. They just need to encourage it, right? Instead of having everyone on the same team who is the strongest, you just split everybody up. And then ironically enough, even people that weren't involved in the picture before suddenly have an opportunity to win, right? If Supple is only one guild, are they the strongest? Sure, but they're also fighting 15 other guilds. So like, you can work to avoid them. Your party can work to pick them off. They can't focus as hard on one set of opponents. There's a lot more going on. And again, there's a lot more opportunities for just a casual PvE players and reasons for them to go to conflict bosses and get involved in PvP. It is what it is. Those are my thoughts on it.